Everybody, Antony here. Marika and I are feeling the effects of social distancing, social isolation, cancellations of clinic days, just the whole coronavirus thing. So we thought we'd get together, have a bit of a chat with each other, find out what's going on in each other's lives, and just begin the discussion about how life as a physical therapist, as a fitness professional might be changing for us really soon, and begin that discussion. Hopefully you enjoy it. Let us know what you think about it, if you're feeling the effects as well, and any questions that you might have, because Marika and I will be doing fairly regular, shorter podcasts during this time. Here we go. Enjoy the show. Hi, welcome to the Women's Health Podcast. I'm Antony Lowe, the physio detective.
And I'm Marika Hart from Herasphere. Together we interview leading authorities, we answer questions and share our thoughts to provide the general public with the best quality information that we can find on all aspects of women's health. Please remember that the materials and the content on this podcast are intended as general information and they're for entertainment purposes only.
They're not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. Now sit back, grab your favourite beverage or do your thing and enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, this is Marika Hart from Herasphere and we're here on the Women's Health Podcast. Over in Sydney, we've got Antony Lowe, the physio detective. G'day Antony, how are you?
Well, thank you, Marika. Nice to have a chat with you.
Yeah, look, I asked Antony to have a bit of a yarn with me today because stuff's gone a bit crazy lately for all of us around the globe. And for me personally, I've really enjoyed listening to podcasts, or I have admittedly probably been watching too many news items and watching too many politicians, listening to too many politicians talk, which is necessary, but also a little depressing, shall we say, and frustrating at times. And I thought it would be really nice for us to have a little chat, and hopefully the people listening will just enjoy hearing our lovely voices.
Well, maybe your lovely voice. Shall I put on my radio voice?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely drop the octaves.
Right.
But tell me, Antony, what's going on over Sydney?
Oh, Sydney's kind of a funny place. It feels kind of complacent at the moment. Just for reference, because I will get this up as soon as possible, it is Wednesday the 18th of March in the afternoon in Sydney. So, Sydney feels kind of complacent. But when you look at the numbers, we are going exponential. And it's tracking as per the predictions that I've seen. So, in the next week or two, we'll be into the thousands. The lack of testing means we don't really know how accurate things are going. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. So, some people are being super prepper, and just hoarding. I went to the supermarket today and it was nuts.
Oh, really?
Oh, it was crazy. I've never seen supermarkets so busy. If you're going to enter the share market, Woolworths, Coles, whatever the stocks are, they're all going down. The stock market went down today, after a bit of a rally yesterday. So, it's a bit weird. I struggled. I think I found a couple of packets of noodles. I found
Not 2 minute
some,
noodles.
yeah, 2-minute noodles.
Oh, gross.
At this stage, like, what can you buy?
Desperation.
What can you buy?
Fresh.
So,
There's heaps of fresh food. Fresh food.
sorry, there
Thankfully, there's
is,
still lots of fresh food.
but like when I went the other night, there was hardly any fresh food. Like,
Really?
oh, it's weird out there, Marika. I don't know what's going on. So,
There's certainly no toilet paper. I haven't seen any toilet paper for at least 3 weeks.
yeah, so there's a local supermarket that we have here, which lets you buy one roll of four, and it's about $4. Um, so we're at about $1 a roll, I think. Uh,
So really
it's
what you should have done is
craziness.
bought shares in Sorbent
Kimberly Clark, the paper
about
company.
4 weeks ago. Yeah. One of my
Oh, it's
dad's friends
nuts.
is at a high school. He works at a high school. I think he's a registrar. And someone broke into the supply cupboard and stole all of the toilet paper and all the tissues. And this is a high school with like 2,000 plus kids.
That's ridiculous.
I know it's crazy.
Well, I tell you what I'm nervous about. About 2 weeks ago, so pretty much when I got back from overseas, I got on eBay and I ordered three of those, the Malaysian style wash your bum sort of hoses that you can attach to your toilet,
Oh my god. Yeah, I think I do know this. Yes.
right? And and people were just starting to hoard toilet paper then, and it still hasn't arrived. And I'm like, it's due to arrive tomorrow, so hopefully it arrives. But
Can you just go down to Bunnings and get like a hose and put an adapter on it, or is that not quite going to cut it?
so Bunnings does have it, but it costs about $100. I got three for 60 delivered to my home. So
Oh,
yeah, I figured I didn't need it that desperately, and we don't. Um, but yeah, you know, like a lot of my
uh,
cousins, a lot of us in my generation grew up with parents. My parents, funnily, didn't do it. Grew up with uncles and aunties that had a spare shower. The downstairs shower was often not used, and it used to be full of toilet paper and tissues. And I'm talking about 30 years ago. It's
oh
just a,
wow.
it's just an Asian thing to do, right? And
I'll take your word for it.
oh yeah, you speak to. I haven't checked on some of those Asian pages, but it's definitely an Asian thing to do.
Hoarding toilet paper.
Well, it's not
Okay.
really. You just buy it when it's on special, right? Because it's a bargain
Oh,
and
okay.
toilet paper doesn't go off. So they haven't been hoarding it. They've just been saving money at the time. Um,
Okay. Well, that's sensible. My husband's a Yorkshireman, so anytime he can save a penny, he does. Unfortunately, he didn't buy truckloads of toilet paper, but he is the guy who, he'll come home with three times as much stuff as what we need. And I'll be like, was it three for the price of two? Yeah. Yeah.
What's
You
wrong
know,
with that? I do
I
that too.
appreciate him being frugal.
Yeah. No, it's so yes, we we actually have uncles and aunties that have said if you need anything just let us know because they really do have a stockpile that's probably 30 years old.
And are you still working in clinic at the moment?
This week I have seen a smattering of people, very, very few. Um, lots of cancellations or lots
Mm.
of can we put it off for a week or two. And with the way that I work as well, you know, um, I don't see people very regularly anyway. So it's kind of like pushing back. Um, so it's kind of quiet. Today, I had a flat battery today. So it's been running around, driving my wife to work and then driving my kids to school and appointments and picking up. And boy, just because you, you know, just because it just reminds me why I go to work because driving around after people, it just sucks. You can't get anything done. So
And I suppose you don't want them on public transport.
appreciation for all the people that stay at home and do that.
Yeah, yeah.
What about Perth? What's Perth like?
I reckon Perth is probably about 7 to 10 days behind you guys. It's really interesting chatting to physio friends in Sydney because I feel like everything over there is sort of escalated, and here people are still pretty relaxed about most things. But having said that, I feel like things have changed a lot in even the last few days. We've kind of gone from, hey, just make sure you wash your hands regularly, which, as physios, we're religious bloody hand washers
This is
anyway.
what
I
we
don't think I
do.
can wash more. But, a lot more with the hygiene of the clinic and wiping everything down and, taking the plinth covers, the fabric, taking them off the bed so that you can wipe down the vinyl more easily and putting paper covers on things, and everyone sanitize their hands. So there's all the stuff kind of that has definitely come into play, but I don't know that I don't know that we're going to be open for much more than a week or so. I'm anticipating that we will shut down, and telehealth is all set up, and I've, like you, Antony, got lots of online things to fall back on, which is really fortunate. Um, Hang on a sec, my son is in the corner. You need to go away because I'm videoing live. I will talk to you a bit later. So clearly, my children are home from school. They both were feeling a bit rough the last couple of days, just like a cold. And my son has celiac disease, and he's had a sore tummy, which can happen if he gets cross contaminated, or he has even dairy upsets him a bit. So it was easy to keep them home. And I just don't know that I want to send them back to school. And it's not that I'm actually worried for them, because we know that we're looking at the stats. It seems that children actually get out of this fine. But I feel like my daughter's at a school with, she has 330 kids just in her year. So it's probably close to 2,000 children at her high school.
Wow.
And she travels on the bus, public transport. And the classes it's a public school. The classes are, I guess, 25 kids all in a small area. So the opportunities to practice social distancing are a joke, really, because they're sitting next to each other at desks. And I figure if those of us who can keep our kids at home do, the class numbers will be so much smaller that those kids can spread out, and you can actually do that, keep children at 1.5 meters apart when there's only, 8 kids in a classroom. And I think for me, it's about supporting all the health workers and the police and all the people who need to be working, who have got to keep shit going, basically. If I can keep my kids at home and just take one more kid out of the classroom, I will do that. But I appreciate that I'm very privileged, and I'm in a position where I can actually do that.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people can't. And I think for them, if we can all make a bit of a sacrifice, maybe some of these classes will be able to stay open for longer term, and we won't have the childcare stresses.
Well, we just got given advice that a lot of this stuff has to be in place for 6 months. Um, it's like, well, I can't keep my kids at home for 6 months. The reason why is because my daughter's in her final year. Every week that she misses from school is massively detrimental to her final marks. Um, you know.
Well, they're transitioning to stuff online. I mean, I
Mm,
think it'll be very interesting to see what the school systems do over the next couple of weeks, because a lot of the kids in year 10, 11, 12, that's going to be really challenging, and they're going to have to find different ways of assessing them and keeping them up to date.
yeah, super disruptive. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But in terms of physical therapy, it's going to be an interesting time. I was saying to somebody, it's going to be really interesting to see just who really needs us, you know. Um, and I think it's the opportune time. I think it's the best time to really make a change to the way that we practice out of pure necessity, because why not? Why not give it a go right now? Um, and so Women's Health Podcast, we can talk about pelvic pain, we can talk about stress urinary incontinence, we can talk about pelvic organ prolapse. I'm not saying that you can do the very best job ever without doing an internal, but a lot of these things can be managed without hands-on. And obviously, we both appreciate the value of therapeutic touch. Um,
Hmm.
we're not saying that that's not a good thing. We certainly aren't in the manual therapy sucks camp, um, but we both work in a very active and empowering way where we try to help people, um, you know, do meaningful activity and get a handle on some of these symptoms. For example, I'm sure we've talked about it, where pelvic organ prolapse, what if it's better managed like persistent pain as opposed to the structural issue of the lack of support? The symptoms, because we know the symptoms don't correlate with the grading, with the staging of pelvic organ prolapse. So, yeah, what do you think? I dropped that little
Well, it's
grenade
interesting.
somewhere.
Yeah, no, look, it's interesting for me, Anthony, because I stepped away from clinic one-to-one work for a few years and just did exercise classes, pre and postnatal work for a few years. And then I rented a room in a gym for a period of time, and I literally didn't have a plinth. And it was, so I had to get a little bit creative. And I actually thought that was it was a really useful experience for me. And this is probably about 6 months or so where I couldn't, because my fallback as a manual therapist would be, if someone had back pain, I would, take them through, movement testing, functional testing, get them on the plinth and start pressing on things,
That's what we
feeling
were
for
trained to do.
feeling for discomfort, all that sort of stuff, which is what we traditionally do. Now, when you take that out of the equation, what are you left with? And I think we're left with a lot. And I did find that I was able to do that for that period of time. Now, I'm not saying I don't appreciate having a plinth now and being able to palpate and do that. But what happened, I think, having that period of time where I wasn't doing like clinical work, and then when I came back to the clinic, I'm really fortunate in that most of the clients who come to see me have an expectation that I'm going to give them advice and exercise. They don't actually come into my door expecting a massage. And I can appreciate that for some therapists, if they're working in a very manual therapy focused clinic and they've had patients for a long time, it's going to be really hard to change the mindset of the patient too. So for me, I get a lot of referrals from other physiotherapists who have already done all the internal work and done pelvic floor muscle training, and they send them to me and say, can you help this person get back to running? And that's great because, we're in the gym. And so I have to say that it is definitely easier for me because the mindset of my, probably 70% plus of my patients is I'm going to go see Marika and she's going to rehab me, not I'm going to go see Marika and she's going to massage me.
Mm,
So that is probably, does make that job a bit easier because the expectations are different.
yeah.
Maybe
I've
that's the
been,
same for you, Anthony.
sorry.
That's probably the same for you as well.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I've been thinking about it. I think I get two types of people. If I get somebody who comes in who has got long-standing pain, um, they've had pain for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever it is, it tends to go pretty much like what my consultations look like online.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll get somebody, okay, and then it goes spinal and peripheral, right? So somebody quads tear, calf tear, hammy tear, glute strain, shoulder strain, blah, 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 elbow, hand, wrist. Like I see all this stuff, right? Acute. Make sure things aren't broken. Same sort of thing. Got to do the exercises, pitch it at the right level, give them the progression, give them things to scale back to or to progress with, depending on how they go over the next week or two before I see them again. Yeah, it's the hard ones are the ones that are spinal. And I was just thinking just how old fashioned that thought is. And then I was thinking about why. Why do I think that way? You know, acute neck pain. I know. My patients know. The people who come and see me know that they will probably be just fine in 6 weeks. They know that because we laugh about it. Um, I often will say, okay, if I had to tell you how long is this going to take, what do you think I'm going to say? They go, 4 to 6 weeks. Right. So you know, right? You know what I'm going to say. Because that's what we have. We have in the literature that. But that there is something that is threatening in an existential way about spinal pain and neck pain and headaches that is
Are you talking about
different
to the patient or to the therapist?
to the patient first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is something different about it because I'll say to somebody, hey, when you had that knee problem, you didn't come and see me for 2 months. And yet you've had this back pain for 2 days and you're coming to see me, and the knee pain was actually worse. And they go, yeah, but like this feels dangerous.
Mm.
And it's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And getting people to think about that is really, really interesting. And so, sometimes they're just looking for that short term relief. and I'm good at giving short-term relief. They know it's short-term relief. I'm not selling them something. I'm not putting them back into alignment. I'm not adjusting them. I'm not doing all these things. It's just relief. It's not even a window of opportunity anymore. I used to be that guy of
I
opening
used
that
to say
window
that
of
too.
opportunity. It's not even that
Get you
anymore.
moving. Get you moving with less pain.
Yeah, it's literally I'm just gonna relieve the pain short term because as I've experienced pain, any relief is gratefully received.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and if they're willing to pay for that, if they go in and ethically I've explained all that, I feel like we're okay with that. Um, and I give people the option. But usually people say both. I want to know how to take care of it myself, and I want you to give me some short-term relief. Um, and there are some people I've done headaches for a long, long time now, and there are some people that just do a lot better with something every 4 to 6 weeks, just some gentle manual therapy. Let's talk about the last month. There's something about that that seems to keep headaches manageable. Um, and I've only got my own stuff to talk about. It, confirmation bias means that I remember all the other therapists that say the same things, um, and they notice. They notice. Oh, I had to cancel last time and we rebooked, and yeah, waiting that extra 2 weeks has been horrible. And then it's like, do you think it's because you knew that you were going to see me and then you couldn't see me, or is it
Or if they're on a
actually
4 week cycle, is it hormonal if they're a female?
right? Been tracking that, and it sometimes it does seem linked, and they know that. And then there are other people that it's like, no, 6 weeks is good, and it
Mm,
doesn't seem to track. So
yeah. And look, I actually, to be honest, I don't have a problem with occasional maintenance. If
no,
someone was to come to me, and I mean, I occasionally get this saying, "Can you just get in there and loosen this up, or give me a bit of a massage?" And I'm like, "No problem."
yeah,
It's, I think what you were saying before, Anthony. It's very much the sales talk around that, the language around that, and
mm,
what we're promising that we're doing, which
yeah,
at the end of the day, we don't know what we're doing. We're doing something maybe to the neural system. We don't know. But actually, if giving someone a massage or doing mobilization every 6 weeks keeps them from taking, you know, opiates, I mean, let's face it, what's better?
yeah. Well, yeah. It's it's a tough position. Um,
Well, let's move on to women's health,
yeah,
pelvic health side of things, because I think we probably have
absolutely.
a lot of health and fitness professionals kind of thinking, well, how does that work in terms of telehealth? And I've already seen some people saying, well, like I work a lot with pelvic pain. How can I do that
Yeah.
without my hands? Which is quite interesting, I think, because especially for people with quite significant pelvic pain, often we don't even put our hands on them for it could be a few sessions before you could even go near the area.
Mm,
And I find that an interesting mindset, because I think there's actually quite a lot that you can certainly investigate in terms of look at some of the outcome measures, look at some of the driving factors to their pain, look at the central nervous system, look at that person within the context of their life. There's so much around pain that you can do without doing a vaginal examination in terms
mm.
of pelvic pain.
Well, and reminding people about the interview we did with Carolyn Van Dyken, you know, um,
Mm.
go have a listen to that one if you haven't had a listen to it. Um, I totally agree with you. Totally agree. And like I said, anyone who's had pain for quite some time, yeah, I try not to put my hands on because I want to put my hands on. I want people to know that inside it is so ingrained in me to put my hands on and to listen and to feel and to see through my hands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't think that it's fair to say that that's not valuable. It's valuable in lots of ways. I think the problem is that it's it's possible to do an excellent job, just as good a job, without doing that. So I'm not discounting the value of touching people. I'm saying that it's my preference, and I shouldn't I shouldn't need to do that. You know, it is interesting because I
Mhm.
see too many people with pelvic pain who have had 20 sessions of internal releases, and it's like, wow, that's a
That's a
lot of
lot.
painful treatment for not much benefit. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, it's it's seeing people with pelvic organ prolapse, and everything that they love doing has been taken away from them, and for what? You know, people who've been told you'll never X again. You'll never run again. You'll never lift again. You'll never jump again. You'll never do this again. You know, you shouldn't consider doing that anymore because of all the impact. Um, and they're back to doing those things in a way that they feel in control with. And I would love this opportunity um, for enforcing social distancing to actually take the time to see if we can actually evolve and do better by touching less. Um,
It's certainly going to be interesting. It's going to be challenging for a lot of us, like without doing a VE and not being able to test pelvic floor strength and function and do a pop Q and do all those measures that we sort of
oh,
rely on in terms of our clinical reasoning.
we are
And
physios. We love to test and measure, right?
yeah, absolutely. And that's part of our clinical reasoning process. So taking some of that away, I feel that what we're going to have to rely on a lot more is our ears, and very much be tapping into what our patients are saying and spend a lot more time on the listening.
Yeah.
That's my sense.
And you know what? I think that falls into the how to do it thing. I think we need to go even further back. And I know that you think this way. Um, it really comes down to what is our identity as physical therapists, as physiotherapists? What is our identity as fitness professionals? Because if we truly believe, like, let's just take physio, because physios are the ones that really love getting hands on. Um, if we truly believe that we cannot do our job to the very best of our ability without touching people, well, then anything less than touching becomes not good enough, right? We're going to feel like we're doing a subpar job. I know that I struggled a lot.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I think I struggled a lot with the idea that I could sit and take a subjective for an hour and take money for that because that's my job. And I struggled for a long time with that because it felt like I wasn't doing my job properly, and yet that is exactly what my job requires of me. If
Yeah.
somebody takes an hour to get their story out, you give them time to say, hey, listen, this is all good information. I'm taking it all in just to make sure that you understand what your expectations are. Like, and and people say, no, this is really good because nobody has listened to me for so long about this. They always want to go in and tell me how they're going to solve the problem. Like, just how valuable that subjective is, it can't be emphasized enough. So,
And the reflective listening.
the reflective listen. Let me make sure that I heard you correctly, Marika.
So I was, I don't know if I was telling you, Anthony, so I'll put this on a podcast. I've been seeing a psychologist recently just about some anxiety and, stuff, what's been going on in my life in the last couple of years. So I thought I'm actually going to go see a psychologist because, that's what I would recommend to my clients too. And it's been such an interesting process to have, because I'm like, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But the questions that she would ask me, so she would just reflect things back to me when I would say something, and she would say, do you really believe that to be true based on your previous experience? And I'd be like, shit, you're right. Huh, really interesting. And so even though all the things that we talked about were so common sense, so commonsensical.
Mm,
Having someone to actually, talk to about these experiences and have them reflected back to you. So hearing your words back to you,
mm,
and then something sitting with that is actually it's really powerful.
mm,
I found it a very powerful experience, but it just made me think, this is what psychologists do all the time, and some of these skills are really useful in physiotherapy. Just the things that we hear about pain, for example.
mm.
I can't bend over because this will happen. Okay, well, tell me about the experiences that you've had that have shown you that that's actually the case. Like just reflecting some of those things back to our patients can be quite
Mm.
powerful.
Oh, or the other one that I picked up from somewhere, I don't know where I pick these things up from half the time. Um, Describe to me what you imagine inside when you go to do this, you know? And
Mm.
and I've had like I had an artist, which is just incredible, right? I had an artist with bad back pain, systemic bad back pain. As in bad back pain, he described it as I have bad back pain, not that his back was bad. Um, and to hear him describe with words, and he could draw it if he really wanted to. And I said, well, it would be really interesting to see what you draw.
Mm.
Um, but just the words like crumbling and weak and jagged and just all these super strong words about what was
Yeah.
going on half of his spine, only on one side,
Yeah.
not the other side. The other side, he goes, it's normal, square, rounded, strong. Just on the other side, it was like this crumbling
Integrating.
metropolis. And it's just interesting that that was his perception of what was going on inside his back, and that was just one pain patient. So many people with DR um,
Mm.
talking about their tummy splitting open
Your
and
guts
their
falling
guts
out.
falling out, and it's like, oh, that's a terrible that's a
It's very
terrible
visceral.
image. It is very visceral. I see what you did there. Oh, you
Sorry, couldn't
stole
help
you
myself.
stole a dad license somewhere.
Oh, such a bad gag.
you
couldn't
know,
help,
so
couldn't help myself.
so yeah, I think first of all we've got to deal with our identity. If you identify like our degree, we got the same degree, which is a master of manual therapy. Like literally, it's in our degree. Um,
Master.
Master of manual therapy, and
I have a mug and everything.
and the if we identify as manual therapists, anytime those ideas get challenged, we feel personally attacked. That's not a healthy place to be. That's number one. Number two, if we are going to evolve, we need we need to number one believe that it's possible, and then try to find out how to make that possible.
Yeah.
And then number two, we need support. And so I know you're fantastic online, Marika, particularly
Oh,
in the
thanks,
Girls
buddy.
Gone Strong group. Oh yeah, it's so supportive and so wise. Um,
Like an old owl.
well, not old, just an owl. Uh, um, you know, we can do that. We're happy for people to message us.
Absolutely.
I don't want to assume, but I've
Yeah.
heard you say before, like just message us, let us know. We're here
Yeah.
to support. And the how to help people with pelvic pain, the how to help people with pelvic organ prolapse, the how to help people with incontinence without touching them. Like I think one of the very first things is to get people to touch their own perineum,
Mhm.
and like for instance, just something super simple that I like to do with people in whatever position that they're symptomatic in is to feel their perineum and get them to cough and feel if they feel pressure into their fingers, into their hand,
Mhm.
um, and say, okay, this is what's happening. Now, can you get it so that it doesn't do that? Now, I don't know how they're doing it, but I'm just interested in any sort of change, to be honest. Um, and having people do that. And then, okay, now when you do this exercise, what did you feel? And sometimes, particularly if they're breathing out, you know how people exhale with that, um, I call it like a
Like
martial
high
arts
pressure hose
noise.
kind of.
Sorry?
I said like a high pressure hose kind of.
Yeah, like a tss, tss, tss. Like some
Mm.
people like to do that as they're exhaling on exertion, and it's like, well, that's creating a lot of back pressure. I'm not sure if you realize that, but having people feel what happens when they do that, what happens if they just held their breath, what happens if they breathed out first, held their breath, and then tried that, and just feeling their own perineum and teaching people how to trust their own hands in their own feeling. That's one thing. Because, I want people to get something from this conversation that's practical that they can do with
Mm.
people.
Look,
Um,
just on this topic though, Anthony, I
mm,
think we could probably do another podcast and just talk
okay.
about.
Yeah.
We could just maybe start with prolapse and incontinence just as
Mm,
one episode, and just crack on with how perhaps we would look at that. And I know you've got a lot of online resources, a lot of online face-to-face consults that
courses,
you've got.
consults. Yeah.
Um, because obviously, you're not doing internal examinations, so
No.
people can see how you kind of wiggle your way around that.
Mm,
But the other thing I'll say, because I think probably we probably won't try and keep this
no.
one particularly long, but for those who want to know a bit more about telehealth, I know Rob Vining has got lots of great stuff in the. I think there's a Facebook group, it's like Telehealth PT Providers or something like that, and there's an allied health one which Karen Finnan does a lot of work in as well. There are people on the ground who've been doing like
Mm,
solely telehealth for years, and I know
mm,
Rob's been doing it for like 15 years or something. So,
right.
and he just put out a whole bunch of free resources. He's literally just said, my $99 program, shit, you guys all need this, just have it for free.
Wow.
Like there's so much stuff available to people if they want to, set themselves up in terms of the infrastructure and all of that. So
We'll
there's
make
lots of
sure
help
they're
out
in
there.
the show notes. We'll make sure they're in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah, I think that'll be really good. And obviously, the problem I'm finding here in Australia is I'm seeing there's a lot of resources in the UK and the US, and I
Mm,
feel like in Australia there's not a lot of people who've been doing it consistently. So Karen's one person, and she's got a program that she helps educate other physios about.
mm,
And I know there's a couple of guys who do pre and post prostatectomy work. I
right.
think they're called Prostate Company or something. I can't, Prostate Physio, something like that.
Mm,
And they've been doing online consults around Australia for a bit, but I don't actually see a lot of people in Australia doing online stuff.
mm,
And I
mm.
think this is a growth area for us. I had a patient who I saw for vaginismus recently, and she lives in the middle of absolute nowhere, top northwest Western Australia, like in an Aboriginal community. And so she's someone that I'm going to reach out to with now that because I assessed her when she's in Perth.
Mm.
But we will do telehealth because she said, "Oh, there's no one within like a 6-8 hour drive of me," and I
It's
think that's
very
a lot of
remote up there.
yeah. And we in Girls Gone Strong we hear that all the time, Anthony. Though
Oh
people
yeah,
who we say, you should go and see a pelvic health physio, and they said, "Yeah, that'd be nice," but there's no
yeah.
one
3 hours,
within.
4 hours. Like
Yeah, yeah.
crazy stuff.
So this I don't think is necessary, not necessarily a flash in the pan situation anyway. So I don't think physios should just think, well, I'm not going to bother because this is only going to be for a month. I think it's not that hard to get set up.
No.
Fitness professionals too, just get on there and start doing exercise classes,
Yeah,
start teaching, just get used to being in front of a camera and talking.
yeah.
You and I seem to be quite happy talking shit a lot.
We do a lot of that. We also talk
um,
about, bowel stuff if we really need to, but yes, just talking shit. Yeah.
yeah, thanks.
Here goes the dead card.
Oh dear, that's terrible. All right, so should we leave it for today and then maybe
That's
come
a
back in
great
a
idea.
let's get
And
some
look,
feedback from the gang.
yeah, look, I think we could probably do some more regular, shorter podcasts, doing some Q&A just while people are in a lower working
Mm,
environment at the moment. Like, let's just take that time to we because we talked about it before the show. We would love to hear from you all and hear any of your questions so that we can just have a discussion. And one of the ideas that we floated was that maybe we just publicize when we're going to do one of these things and let you
Mm.
guys jump on and ask live, and let you be a part of the podcast and because that'll be fun too, right?
Yeah.
So we're all for anything that's fun right now. So so
And we really want to support people in the community, like both of us. I feel, yeah, I think it's quite easy to get caught up in everything that's going on and feel quite alone or anxious or, yeah, just a bit flat. And I think, maybe if we're all a bit isolated, feeling a bit isolated, having a bit of connection through this podcast might be a nice thing. And I'm definitely going to reach out to a couple of people. And I know you have Antony as well. See if we can get a few more guests on the show in the next few weeks.
yeah, I think
They're all probably stuck.
yeah, I think that's fantastic. We'll draw all that up and get these podcasts going for you all. Awesome.
Excellent. Well, let's say goodbye for now.
Awesome. So thanks very much. Please leave your comments. Please share the podcast. And, if you do want to connect, please feel free to do so. And we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that's it for this episode. Be sure to hit like if you enjoyed the episode and leave any comments or questions below. We'd really like to hear from you.
If you haven't already hit subscribe, please do so now so that you can be kept notified when we release our next episode.
Otherwise, thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you back with us for another episode of the Women's Health Podcast.